Zero, right behind me is the World Trade Towers. It was nearly a decade ago, but in many ways it feels like it was yesterday when I arrived at Ground Zero shortly after the attack. Look at this. This isn't even close. This is just a pub next door. People don't have any idea what went on here. The images I saw and the people I met will be forever etched in my mind. Now, right now, you're hoping and praying that they're going to bring people out of there alive.
Yeah, that's the hope that we all live for every day.
It was 9 years ago, right here at Ground Zero, and I will never forget the sights, the sounds, and the smells. The smell was horrible. At that burning core, cops, firefighters were laying all around the site. It's something like walking out of a nightmare into real life. You know, a lot has gone down since that horrible day, and there's still plenty of unfinished business. And all of that activity right behind me at Ground Zero, well, that's proof that the terrorists lost. They couldn't destroy our spirit or blunt our resolve or stall our mission for getting justice. And that's what we're doing tonight. That mission includes hunting down a very dangerous sleeper agent for Al-Qaeda. This underground menace once lived right here in New York City, but his link to 9/11 began in a very unlikely location. Just a few miles from the glitz and glamour of Miami Beach, 9/11 investigators turned their attention to a seemingly strange place, a strip mall in Broward County, Florida. But this mall was the home of the Darul Uloom Institute and Islamic Training Center, a mosque opened in 1995 by Sheikh Safayat Mohammed.
When I came here, there were just about 4 or 5 small Islamic centers in South Florida. And I started teaching people at my home until the numbers grew. And when the numbers grew to be so much, we decided we needed a place.
The realistic life of a Muslim in Ramadan.
In the hours after the 9/11 attacks, investigators ID'd suspects they thought were responsible for the carnage. And many of them had something in common. They had passed through this mosque.
There were a lot of crazy guys, and there were radicals, and there were extremists who passed through here. I did not attract them. It was they probably coming here to hide, because this place is known to be a very liberal, moderate place.
Some of the visitors from the 90s are a who's who of terror. Mohammed Atta, the suspected leader of the 9/11 terrorists. Imran Montai, guilty of plotting to blow up a power plant in South Florida. And dirty bomber Jose Padilla, a former gangbanger from Chicago, convicted of aiding Al-Qaeda.
Because I knew Jose Padilla, I taught him to read the Quran. In fact, the pictures of Jose Padilla that came out publicly came from here, because this is where he was.
We need to use this Ramadan to propel, to expand.
Then there was Adnan Shukra Juma.
He would sometimes teach classes. You know, he was a beautiful Quranic reciter. He was a good singer. He was really a nice, good human being. He was a normal, regular Westerner boy.
But in 2003, when intelligence agents caught up with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the man behind 9/11, he started talking and revealed a bombshell. Shukra Juma wasn't a normal Westerner boy. He was the ultimate sleeper agent, working his way to the top of Al-Qaeda's ranks. His life illustrates the frightening reality that terrorists can blend in amongst us in ways we'd never know. To try and stop him, investigators had to look back and find out who he really was. Adnan Shukra Juma's father moved his family from Saudi Arabia to Brooklyn in the early 90s to become the imam at the Al Farouk Mosque. His young son would soon be exposed to the kind of radical Islam that targets America.
Well, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, going back to the very first World Trade Center bombing, developed information coming out of the Al Farouk Mosque that there was an individual by the name of Osama bin Laden trying to raise funds and soliciting Mujahideen fighters to go to Afghanistan to fight alongside him against the Russians.
Shukra Juma's father was also a translator for the man known as the Blind Sheikh, a terrorist leader serving life in prison for his role in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Shortly after that attack, the Shukra Juma family moved to South Florida, and the elder Shukra Juma began working at the Darul Uloom Institute.
To dig into the Quran, ponder into the Quran, and study the difference between right and wrong.
According to the Imam, the younger Shukra Juma, now a teenager, moved deeper into Islam with each passing day.
I would remember him coming early in the morning and praying 5 o'clock and 5:30 and everything, yeah. My sister got married at this Islamic center, and Adnan was the boy that sang at the wedding. He would sing beautiful songs.
But away from the mosque, Shukra Juma showed another side as he moved deeper into American culture.
He was a little too Western at sometimes. I would remember him with his cars, and he would drive out fast like a, Fast and Furious boy with a car.
Shukra Juma's love of cars helped him fit in with other young Floridians.
Your brand new 97 Honda Accord.
The FBI would later turn up this video of him giving a student presentation in an English as a second language class at Broward Community College on how to jumpstart cars.
When we are jumpstarting a car, we have two things. We have the good battery in your car, which is smiling here, and the dead battery in the dead car, which is...
Agents say the studious kid who fixed computers and sold cars on the side was hiding the truth. That he'd begun rubbing elbows with radicals at the mosque like Jose Padilla. By the late 1990s, Shukra Juma was on a dangerous, violent path. Investigators believe he made several trips to terror training camps in Afghanistan. With his expertise in English and computers, he was exactly what Al-Qaeda needed.
We were collecting intelligence that Al-Qaeda was now looking for individuals that could come into the United States and conduct a terrorist operation and an attack internally. Shukra Juma fit that bill. He was very familiar with U.S. culture, able to obtain the necessary documents to remain under the radar.
Shukra Juma returned from the terror camps with a new nickname, Jafar the Pilot. And federal agents say orders from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to scout potential terror targets like the New York subways. But after 9/11, when investigators descended on the modest home in South Florida, where he lived with his parents, they found Shukra Juma was gone.
If I try to reach him or he will try to reach me, he will be killed and disappear.
And that's exactly what he did. Disappear. Then in September of last year, the feds arrested 2 suspected Al-Qaeda operatives living in Colorado. As part of their investigation, they showed the men this videotape to see if they recognized the man who was speaking. Not only did they recognize him, but they told agents he was the one who sent them out on their deadly mission to blow up subways in New York City. Shukra Juma, the sleeper agent, had resurfaced. And now he's been indicted on 10 terrorism charges for planning even more sleeper agents in the U.S.
To know that Islam is so misunderstood.
The Imam of Shukra Juma's former mosque knows that his attempts to work for better understanding between faiths is now more difficult than ever.
Being a person in this position, where you have an Adnan al-Shukri and a Jose Padilla pass through my hands, so you could imagine what law enforcement thinks of me.
But for law enforcement and for all of us, the only priority is hunting Adnan Shukra Juma down before it's too late.
The world now will be looking for Adnan Shukra Juma and hopefully capture him before anyone else is killed.
Pat, you were head of counterterrorism for the FBI back when they first started tracking Shukr Zuma. Are there a lot of guys like him? Are there a lot of sleeper cells in America?
Well, John, that's the concern. The number one priority since 9/11 is to identify those individuals in this country that are concerned to our national security.
People don't know how to look for these guys. They want to do the right thing. Give us some tips.
You know, before 9/11, the concentration of the radical fundamentalist cause was really in the major cities in the United States. 9/11 showed us that a lot of these individuals are trying to stay under the radar and went to rural America.
So they could be in small-town America. Where do you think Shukr Zuma is?
Well, Shukr Zuma's photo has been widely dispersed. If you find Shukr Zuma coming into this country, he's probably going to be clean-shaven. That means he's probably going to go into an operational mode. So if he's here, it's not for a good reason.
Well, Pat, we've got viewers worldwide, and I hope that tonight they can make the world a much smaller place for Shukr Zuma and the other coward terrorists.
Look out!
Ah, he bit me! Stop it!
Here in the shadow of Ground Zero, it's business as usual. As it's always been, it's an area full of really hard-working people, like the couple you're about to meet. They own a jewelry store in the borough of Queens. But one night, as they set off on their 10-mile commute to Nassau County, they were totally unaware of the shock that was waiting for them.
Right on time. Don't you say a word. Give me the watch.
Please don't hurt us.
No! Give me that watch. No! Give it to me. Give me that watch. No! Give it to me. Ah, he bit me. Stop it!
Please, we need help.
Let's get him.
It was a brutal beating. Lugna Raleigh and his wife Sasha were lucky to be alive.
As we walked through the door, he came out of nowhere.
They must have been waiting for us.
They were both African American. The big one was in his 40s.
With a mile-long rap sheet. From 1979 to 2009, Carter had been arrested nearly 20 times and did a 10-year stint for bank robbery. While in prison, Carter converted to Islam and changed his name to Sadiq Wahab, but he hadn't changed his ways.
As the joke goes, if you were to look up career criminal in a dictionary, you'd probably have a photograph of Sadiq.
Listen to me. Once you find your target, you wait for the perfect moment. But once you enter the house, you got to take control. You got to hit, and you got to hit them hard.
As he got older, cops say Wahab began sharing his knowledge, recruiting a new generation of thugs to help him pull off more jobs.
You feel me? Give me some. That's what I'm talking about. All right.
For months, cops searched everywhere for Wahab. Finally, on February 23, 2010, Nassau County Police and U.S. Marshals got word that he was hiding out at his parents' house on this block in Brooklyn.
10-4, we're moving in.
So Mike could get some good intel that makes sense, that he's here in his parents' house. What went down?
We got a tip that he was here. His neighbors know that he's on the run. He's a predator. He's preyed on his neighbors right in the very neighborhood here. He's a violent guy, and it's not surprising that someone called us. But unfortunately, he got away.
So he gets away that night, but you almost nailed him in the spring in the city in Chinatown.
Yeah, we had a great opportunity to grab him. A very alert female New York City police officer was out on patrol late at night. She spotted a car with 4 males in it.
Sir, step out of the car.
She followed that car and pulled it over, and when she took those guys out of the car, she discovered all the tools of a stick-up team. They had ski masks and rubber gloves. She had some real bad guys in that car. One of those bad guys was our target, Sadiq Wahab. She tried running their names through the computers to find out who was wanted, and unfortunately, one of these bureaucratic snafus prevented her from getting the accurate information back.
What do our viewers need to know about him, and where do you think he is?
Unfortunately, there is nothing quirky or unusual about this guy that makes him stand out. He's just a big, strong, violent guy that likes to prey on people weaker than him. He stands over 6 feet tall. He's about 6'1" or 6'2", and about 220 pounds. Lately, he's been suffering from sciatica, so he's got a little bit of a back problem, and he may be walking with a limp.
Well, I know he preys on his neighbors, and they'd like to see him caught. And I think you're going to be the reason that he gets taken down tonight. But you got to have the courage to make that call. 1-800-CRIME-TV. And I guarantee you, you can remain anonymous. Let's get this creep off the streets.
I left Albania to get away from some terrible trouble. I was attacked by a man. He stabbed me and fled.
Irvis had basically gotten away with attempted murder in Albania. What unbelievable odds that 2 men, thousands of miles away, would move to Waterbury, Connecticut. It was an unbelievable coincidence. Waterbury is a city of immigrants. It was primarily an Irish and Italian city, and recently the community's become more diverse and welcomed a large segment of the Albanian community into our city.
My name is Meko. I am from Albania. I moved to Waterbury, Connecticut 3 years ago. They opened their door to Albania immigrants that wanted a better life. My story is a little different. I left Albania to get away from some terrible trouble.
We got a call that there was a murder at an apartment building occupied mostly by Albanian immigrants. My name is Captain Chris Corbett, and this is my case.
Unë jam Officer Rahim Zilali. Unë punoj për Departamentin e Waterburyt. My name is Officer Rahim Zilali. I am Albanian, and I was brought in to work in this case because I speak Albanian.
A friend of an elderly woman went to check on her. She had not heard from her in several days. When she got there, she found the door cracked open. She looked inside and found her friend, Laura Orso, motionless in a pool of blood. It was a horrific murder, one of the most shocking in city's history.
Who was this elderly lady?
She was my aunt, Laura Orso, 85 years old, a widower. She was like a mother to me. She lived in an apartment, mostly Albanian immigrants, and she was the matriarch, the grandmother of everybody in that house. She had an open door policy. They'd come to her to fill out forms, whether it was Social Security, whether to get a job, whether to get their driver's license. They always came to Aunt Laura, because Aunt Laura was the kindest person you ever wanted to meet.
Back to my story. The reason I left Albania is that 6 years ago, I was attacked by a man. He stabbed me and fled. He thought he would kill me and hunt me down. So I left to come here 1,000 miles to safety.
We worked our investigation. I worked with the Albanian community. We found out what had happened.
Our investigation began to focus early on Irvis Mekalari. A young man in his early 20s. He'd recently come here to Waterbury from Albania. He lived in the apartment building only a short time. His parents told us that their son had been acting erratically lately and that he'd fled at the time Mrs. Orso's body was discovered. Laura was targeted because of a robbery. She was a very nice person, and unfortunately, someone took advantage of that. And Laura's family told us that she would often give cash to her nieces and nephews and put them in envelopes. We found envelopes in her apartment, but with the cash missing. Irvis knew her, she knew Irvis. There were no signs of forced entry.
When I said that, my wife and my daughter were there with me. And I could still hear their screams when I said the word murder. I can't believe that someone would do this. I just couldn't imagine her final moments.
First thing, obviously, was to process the crime scene. There was obviously a lot of blood at the crime scene. We suspect that the person who killed her cleaned up after the killing, so he used the hand towels to clean the blood off. And we found trace DNA evidence on those towels linking the suspect to the crime scene.
Silly move on his part.
Lucky for us, and unlucky for Irvis, we found his DNA. We also did a search warrant at his apartment, and we seized his toothbrush, forensically analyzed it, and compared it to the DNA at the crime scene, and linked the two, showing that Irvis was the killer.
Our murderer is Irvis McAlary.
This Waterbury Police Department, they're the best guys in the world. I had grown men in my house crying because it was like their grandmother, their aunt. Her death took a large toll on our family. I had everything to do to try to hold them together. She was a loving person and a person that we miss.
Laura was a
story. Rocco, I want you to know that my heart goes out to you, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Our prayers are with you and your family. And I know that all of our viewers really want to see some justice. They're as mad as I am. What coward could stab an 85-year-old woman? Now, you just heard Captain Corbett say that McAlary took a bus to New York City from Connecticut. And cops believe there's a very good chance he could still be right here. But wherever he is, cops suspect he's hiding somewhere with a large Albanian population. Now, we know he's very dangerous. He's stabbed at least 3 people. So let's get this violent guy off the street before somebody else gets hurt. If you've seen Irvis McAlary, don't wait. Call our hotline tonight. We even have an Albanian-speaking officer in our hotline right now to take your call at 1-800-CRIME-TV. That's 1-800-274-6388. Please, have the courage to make that call. Excited about. I first told you about John Hamilton a couple of months ago. He was a Little League coach from a Washington, D.C. suburb who everyone trusted and respected, until one of his former players came forward to say that Hamilton had sexually abused him.
All right, nice, high five.
Then another one came forward, and another. And to the shock of his neighbors, Hamilton admitted everything.
Like the first time that I ever did anything, I was either 16 or 17.
Even though he agreed to a guilty plea, this creep tried to claim that it wasn't his fault.
It was them saying yes, or I want this, or whatever. Nothing was ever forcibly done.
Unbelievably, a judge let Hamilton free on bond until his court date, and he went on the run. I knew you wanted to catch Hamilton as much as me, because your calls kept our hotline operators really busy. Many of the tips came in from Europe. The U.S. Marshals followed up on all of them, working together with Interpol, the International Police Agency. That kind of pressure kept Hamilton moving through Europe. And as he tried to slip into Poland late last month, an alert border guard recognized him. So tonight, John Hamilton sits behind bars and will soon be back in the U.S. to face justice. I couldn't be happier that this case is closed. Tonight, your tips may also be getting cops nearer to closing another tough case, one I told you about just 2 weeks ago. It's the story of Deanna Schermerhorn, whose body was discovered in a shallow grave at her home in North Carolina. Her husband, Christopher Meade, disappeared before Deanna's body was discovered. As we showed you, investigators found these photos of Meade driving Deanna's car and using her ATM card. They tracked him across the South before losing his trail. And while Meade is only charged with fraudulent use of Deanna's cards, he's the only person of interest in her death. Well, your tips have heated up the hunt for Meade.
He said he he had a wife, something happened to her, and then he dropped the kid off and left.
The investigators at our hotline were especially excited about a tip from Kentucky.
It was one of the best ones we've gotten since we've actually been working on the investigation. The caller was able to give us some very distinct clues that very much piqued our interest.
Cops are working those clues hard, but still need more help from you to track Meade down. Remember, Meade has a strong Southern accent and has a heart-shaped tattoo, smaller than a dime, on the left side of his chest. If you think you know where he's hiding, make that call, 1-800-CRIME-TV.
Excuse me.
Larry? You Larry Burns?
Beg your pardon?
You Larry Burns?
No. What I be on camera for?
Now, tonight you've already heard about a guy captured in Eastern Europe after nearly a year on the run. And we also told you about a lowlife that you helped grab in Panama, who'd been running for more than 5 years. I was really glad to see that pervert get caught. Well, now get ready for the incredible story of how your tips caught up with an accused killer who cops were chasing for more than 20 years.
Okay, copy. That dude right there with the gray hair, dude, he just passed by.
I received a phone call from our Chicago task force asking us to check a tip that came in to AMW. We worked up the information that we received, and it actually fits the guy that's wanted. Right now, we're surveilling the address of residence for Daniel Oaks. So we're hoping that we get lucky. Hey, Red, can you see which way that guy went?
No, I can't tell.
All right, copy. I'm gonna look at him with the binos from a distance. Just wondering if this guy's just gonna be sitting in there eating cornflakes all night and not come out. It was also brought to my attention that today's his birthday on his DL.
Okay, Raj.
You would think that he'd show up, right?
As U.S. Marshals waited outside Daniel Oaks' home in Long Beach, California, Leona Creighton was at her home nearby, waiting for him too.
Well, I know Daniel's birthday was coming up, so I had got these cards, and I called him that morning around 9 to tell him happy birthday. And he says, Mama, can I call you back? And I waited and waited and waited. He didn't call.
Leona isn't really Daniel's mother. That's how she's thought of herself for the past 20 years, ever since he started doing odd jobs around her house in return for a home-cooked meal.
Anything you want, Mama. I said, nah, I ain't never met nobody this nice. You know? He's such a handyman, a jack of all trades, a master of many.
Eventually, Oaks found steady work as a video game and pool table repairman. He told Leona that he was from Ohio and moved to Southern California to create a new life for himself. But he didn't say why he needed one.
Maybe he just didn't want nobody to know his past. I know when we go to drinking sometime, he would like cry and say he missed home or something like that.
But someone in Daniel Oaks' life knew about his past. Someone who emailed the AMW hotline and told us that Oaks was a fugitive we've been hunting for more than 2 decades. His real name? Larry Burns.
What is this? Oh, man.
In 1979, Larry Burns had made himself part of another family in Gary, Indiana. But even though his marriage to Vicki Oliver appeared to be happy, Vicki's mother, Linda, knew something was wrong.
Vicki did not talk about Larry that much to me because she had already discovered, I think, that she was into a situation that she was not comfortable with. She did not like it, but she didn't know how to get out of the situation.
Linda's motherly intuition was right. Vicki feared Burns, and for good reason. Cops say he had a violent temper and often made Vicki the target of his drunken rages. After one particularly vicious beating, Vicki moved out and went to stay with her mom. Cops say Burns threatened to kill Vicky's entire family. So to protect themselves, Vicky and Linda kept guns with them at all times. On May 23, 1986, they had to use them, when cops say Burns showed that his threats were for real.
Mama! It's Larry! He's coming up to the back and he's got some guns!
I jump up out of my bed and I come into the kitchen, and then I shot him. I didn't freak out. I wasn't even nervous. The only thing that I was thinking of at that time is I'm hoping that I distract him enough down here that Vicky gets away or something of that nature. His gun jammed, and at that time I knew this was my time to run out the front door. He fired 2 shots as I went out the door.
Craig, call the police!
I went down the street hollering, and at that time Larry had went upstairs. Very soon, then, after the shot stopped, Larry walked out the front door with one shoe on and one off, with a shotgun in one hand and a pistol in the other hand. He walked down the street and he just disappeared.
Vicky's accused killer still hasn't been brought to justice. Starting in 1993, we profiled Larry Burns on America's Most Wanted. Again and again and again. You gave us lots of tips, but none led to the accused killer. Crime TV.
Is it him?
He's pulling in. Are we gonna take him?
Yeah, if it's him, let's go ahead and take him.
Until 24 years after the rampage in Indiana, the tipster told us about Daniel Oaks in Southern California, and the U.S. Marshals moved in. The arrest went off without a hitch, but was the man in cuffs really our fugitive?
Face the front, sir. We'll explain everything to you later. What I'm being camera for?
Larry?
He claimed it was all a case of mistaken identity.
Beg your pardon?
You Larry Burns?
No. Can we go where we going?
When we fingerprint you, what name's gonna come up?
Whatever name on there.
Okay. Pretty sure this is our guy. Yeah.
Where are you from, sir?
The fingerprints would prove that it was, much to the shock of a family who'd opened their hearts to him, but really didn't know him at all.
No, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. Daniel was not like that, unless he didn't turn his whole life around when he met this California family. So he killed his wife?
Back in Indiana, investigators couldn't wait to bring Linda Oliver the news that was 2 decades overdue.
Yeah, I know they have. We're here to tell you that Larry's been apprehended, and he's in jail in California, and we will be bringing him back.
Oh, I just wish he was dead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's
I wish he was dead.
The U.S. Marshal took him into custody, got his fingerprints,
Good.
and he was positively identified.
God
And
is
so
good.
He's in custody now.
Well, that's a relief.
It is.
It is. We can
It
have
is.
some kind of closure
It is.
to the fact that we don't have to always be looking over our shoulders.
Right.
I was just never satisfied with him being alive and my daughter being dead.
Someone came forward. They came forward.
And isn't that wonderful?
Yes, this is
I want God to bless that person, whoever they are.
Tonight, the manhunt's on for alleged al-Qaeda terrorist Adnan Shukra Juma. Career criminal Sadiq Wahab, wanted for armed robbery. Accused rapist Isaac Suarez. And accused killer Irvis Mekalari. 24 seasons. I can't tell you how honored and humbled I am to have been with you for all this time and to continue to work together. It's an amazing privilege. Over the years, I've traveled all over the world, and I've met so many incredible people. But the day I spent right here 9 years ago at Ground Zero, meeting the unbelievably brave men and women, will remain with me forever. As I leave you tonight with a look back at that dark day and a positive look toward the future, I pray that you stay safe, stay strong, and that you'll always remember, no matter what, you can make a difference.